Norton Law Group. And now, your objection sustained. Your hosts, Karen Klaus and former Bexar County District Attorney Nico Jorge.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is Sidebar, and before I start, I wanted to say, wow, did y'all tell me what the subjects were going to be, and why are there so many people already online that have joined us? If you are a first-time viewer or listener to Sidebar, go to sidebartv.com. That's where you can get on social media to watch the live stream during, and of course, join us for the after show. That's sidebartv.com, and at that website, you can also please consider becoming a contributor to the show. You know, this week we're going to talk about a bunch of things as usual, and we try to pick the things we believe to have, come to the surface and that you want to talk about. And one of them is, surprise, surprise, a Democrat mayor is now saying the president's orders to have federal law enforcement put into the city of D.C. or has helped lower crime. Is that girl going to get in trouble or what? A Democrat agreeing with the president? And then also poll after poll now showing the Democrats are really hitting levels of unpopularity that we haven't seen. Could it be decades? Well, it's a really long time. And then a topic that both of you have brought up so many times, and that is studies will finally start soon on trying to find out if there's a link between psychiatric medications and violent attacks. This after that Minnesota Catholic school shooting at the hands of a man who identified as trans. Well, every week, we really appreciate you coming here. You can hear the former Bexar County DA Nico Jorge, trial lawyer, managing partner of Jorge Norton Law Group, and George Araujo, scholar, former chemist, and pharmaceutical researcher and director. You know, just like I had mentioned, both of you have talked about this for a long time. Is there a link between psychiatric medications like SSRIs and violence? After watching that video on YouTube, that guy was deranged and scary. I just wonder, do you have any thoughts about that? Is this something that should have happened a long time ago?
Well, look, there's a lot to unpack on this Minnesota shooting. You have that, you have SSRI drugs, you have transgender issue that no one on the left seems to want to talk about. And I'm not saying that we have to talk about it disrespectfully or cruel or anything other than caring, but also objectively. Then you have the comment that some people on the left, Gavin Newsom and that ridiculous mayor from Minnesota, saying that it's not more than just thoughts and prayers. And well, no one's saying it's just about thoughts and prayers. We can unpack that. We can unpack the attack on Christianity, like over a 400 to 700% increase in attacks on Christian schools and organizations and people in that nature, not to mention ideologically the attack has been for decades. And then also, of course, the dreaded gun control debate over this issue. And we can, look, we have data should really influence us, and the data shows that guns are not the problem. And so I don't know where you want to go with this, Karen. There's a lot to unpack. You started with the SSRI drugs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. If you look at mass, quote unquote, 4 or more deaths, shootings, this would not be considered a mass killing. It's a mass shooting, but not a mass killing, thank God. I think a huge number, I want to say almost close to 100% of these suspects, these shooters, are on SSRI drugs, have a history of SSRI drugs, from depression to all kinds of medication that you put on. You get labeled something and then you put medication on. And then I know that the left doesn't want to talk about this, but I think objectively you have to add, I'm just trying to set the frame, and then we can go wherever you want to go, Karen. And then, what do you do with, in 2018, the Aberdeen shooter identified as transgender? What do you do with, in 2019, the Colorado shooter identified as transgender? What do you do with 2019 Denver shooter identified as transgender? What do you do with the 2023 Nashville shooter identified as transgender? What do you do with the 2024 Iowa shooter identified as transgender? What do you do with 2024 Lakewood shooter identified as transgender? And then the Minneapolis shooter here identifies transgender. Now, is that the issue? No, I'm not saying that's the issue.
But there is some correlation between what's going on.
All I'm saying is, can you put it in the equation at least, the things to discuss? We just have to analyze that. I'm not saying that that's the issue. I know a lot of people that identify in that way and are dealing with that and struggling with gender euphoria or gender identity. They're not mass shooters, not murderers, okay? But it's something here, because I guarantee you, if all the things I just said, it was a Christian white dude, I guarantee it would be 24/7, and we'd be looking at it. So it's I'm saying it has to be part of the discussion, and it should be part of the analysis. Now, how do you respond? Then you have the issue also, Karen. I mean, this is going to be. I mean, this is a huge topic because there's so many collateral issues. Then if you're talking about faith, why would a loving God allow evil to this magnitude happen? That's a different issue. I think there's an emotional versus an intellectual problem with evil and suffering.
What is the answer to that? Everybody that asked that question, there is an answer, right?
Yeah, there is. Look, I like William.
I like the answer, but I want y'all to say it.
I my testimony. My brother was shot in 1996, August 15th. We just, it was just his anniversary of going to heaven, as we say. So he was shot in the face in our driveway, and we walked out literally minutes later. So I'm not speculating here. I didn't go to some course on sensitivity or something like that. I mean, we walked through this, and I had the same questions. I was angry at God. I grew up Catholic. I did not have a relationship. I was not saved. I was not going to heaven when Mike passed away. Thankfully, he was. I was not. And so I take it very personal. That's why I'm very, very passionate about my faith and ideology and worldview. I like William Lane Craig's to talk about this. He says, does God have a morally sufficient reason for allowing evil? And when he analyzes it further, he says, as long as that statement is possibly true, there is no logical incompatibility between God, a loving God, and the issue of suffering. So the atheist, agnostic, the person, the anti-faith, anti-Christian person would have to show that it's logically impossible for God to have morally insufficient reasons for allowing the suffering. So let me apply it to myself. And I say this when I speak to men's conferences, churches, prison ministry, wherever. I would not go back to 1996, August 15th at 2:14 in the morning and change that. And people don't understand when I say that. I would not change for anything. I literally wouldn't. And the reason why, because if I change that, then I change everything. I didn't know at the time it was Romans 8:28. I'm just saying God is working in all this. He does allow these things. He is sovereign. So when you say, why would he allow it? He didn't wake up one morning and say, oh, this Minneapolis psychopath is going to get one over on me. Of course he allowed it to happen if you believe in a sovereign God, which I do, and I believe the evidence supports that. And so I think William Lane Craig's analysis, this distinction between intellectual and emotional problem with suffering, we get hung up on the emotional problem. But the intellectual one, as using me as an example, is I think very clear to me. Now, I didn't feel it emotionally the whole time.
Sure.
And I mean, it's been years now, but I'm just saying. So, I mean, I just wanted to lay the framework. I didn't mean to, George, I know you want to chime in here. And there's so much to talk about, from gun control to prayer to faith to the issue to transgender issues with this and violence to the SSRI drug issue to what could be done to solve it, to the Democrats, and not all of them, let's be fair, but to the vocal ones like Newsom and this mayor saying it's more than just about prayers. And well, nobody on conservative Christian side is saying it's only about prayers. No, who's saying that? No one is saying that. Yes, we need to act, but what should be the action? They want to take away your guns as if that's going to stop everything. Look at the UK. The no guns, they have a knife problem. They have a vehicle problem. And then we can look at the data on how many people are truly, data, hard data, from FBI, from NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, from CD, different organizations that hold data. Homicides are not the issue with guns. We can talk about vehicular deaths, we can talk about alcohol-related deaths, and it'll shock most people. And no one's talking about banning alcohol or vehicles. So go where you want to go, Karen, George. I just wanted to set the framework. Sorry to talk so much. It's just that I'm passionate about this issue. I see this, I deal with this every day in my profession. I've prosecuted it. I've been involved in the justice system, defended accusations as well. So wherever you guys want to go, I'm happy to go. I just think that there's so many issues to discuss.
I'm listening to Nico, and I have very little to add other than sort of fluctuating between anger, and deep sadness. I'm almost outraged at, and I've been on that soapbox for a couple of years when this topic comes up, and it comes up for various reasons. Unfortunately, rarely ever good, right? And it is my view that these poor individuals who are suffering from delusion are being exploited for political gain and political power and financial gain. That's my view. I firmly believe that. I think that the data is overwhelmingly on the side of that view. We have a disorders that used to be treated compassionately and clinically responsible. But now these disorders have become a social contagion. They've been commercialized as such in the classroom, in DC, and everywhere in between where you have Democrats. Democrats have been pushing this madness, And now we went from what? A disorder to a social contagion to a celebrated condition. This is now a counterfeit religion. And there is a very, very good reason, it's totally logical, why Christianity is always in the crosshairs. Christianity is a firewall against this madness. It is. Christianity espouses order. Men are supposed to be strong protectors of women. Women are supposed to be dedicated nurturers of children. And at the sacred center is a sacred child. This order, this triad, this circle is been busted in society. We just talked on R-rated Christianity, how we've moved away from a Judeo-Christian ethic in the country, but now you've got 67% of the country who dismisses the notion of absolute truths. So we are adrift at sea as a country, and this is a symptom of that issue. It is not an accident. Well, the Washington Post has a shooting database, a mass shooting database, Nico, and since 2023, there's been 5 mass shootings, and two of them have been exactly like we just saw, including the one that we just saw, where you had a deluded female who thought she was a male, killed, 6 people at Covenant Christian School, and 3 of them were kids. And now we have this, a slaughter of kids. I don't think this is the end, unfortunately. I pray it would be, but you've got a party that's still steeped in this. Minnesota has lost its mind. Its politicians, from the Attorney General to the governor to the lieutenant governor to the Minneapolis mayor, they're celebrating this insanity. It's got to stop.
Okay, we have to continue this conversation. And you're right, Nico. There are so many facets to this discussion. It's hard to see how we're going to cover all of them. But stick with us. Go to sidebartv.com right now and join us live on the stream. We'll be right back with more on Sidebar.
With reputations as respected high-level prosecutors in Bexar County, the attorneys of LaHood Norton Law Group bring invaluable practical knowledge from the other side of the aisle, using over 70 years of combined experience to strategically advocate clients' rights and pursue the best possible outcome.
I'm Nico LaHood with LaHood Norton Law Group. Have you been arrested or accused of a crime? The LaHood Norton Law Group has the knowledge to defend you regardless of how small or large your case. In Bexar County, anywhere in the state, or even nationwide, we have the knowledge to defend you in federal or state court, no matter how small or large your case. We are trial lawyers with proven success.
Using their 70 years of combined experience to strategically advocate for their clients' rights and pursue the best possible outcome. The LaHood Norton Law Group. For a free consultation, call today, 210-797-7700. 210-797-7700. LaHoodNorton.com.
This is Nico LaHood. If you or a loved one has been arrested or accused of a crime, we can help.
LaHoodNorton.com.
1200 WOAI. Please join us at sidebartv.com to find the social media platform of your choice, so you can also watch the show. Nico, before we get into any one of so many topics when it deals with the shooting that we just saw happen this week, you were talking about statistics, because now, of course, we're going to hear about all the gun statistics and why, again, everybody needs to hand over their guns. Do you have any stats?
Yeah, and they're not my stats. They're FBI stats, the Uniform Crime Report. You have NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. You have the CDC of top 3 causes of death. And so let's just look at them. Let's look at guns, let's look at vehicles, and let's look at alcohol. FBI stats, in 2023, there was 46,728 gun deaths, period. 23,300 deaths were suicide, 58%. That's not what we're talking about here. That's unfortunate. Yes, this individual, this guy, ended up shooting himself in the parking lot like a coward, like most of them do. But out of the 46,700, 17,900, right under 18,000 were homicides. That's 38%. That's the ones we're talking. We're talking about homicides with guns, not suicides or accidents. The rest were accidental gun shootings, discharges, things of that nature. That's guns. So you have 17,000, almost 18,000 homicides with guns, involving guns. Now, vehicular deaths in that same year were almost 41,000, right under 41,000.
Okay.
Vehicular deaths. Now, no one's talking about banning cars or motorcycles. Now, if you made motorcycles and cars, if you made it a national law that no vehicle could travel over 30 miles an hour, nobody would die. Even a drunk person wouldn't kill you, most likely, unless you hit somebody walking on the side of the street, potentially. But deaths would go way down. Vehicular deaths of all kinds, 40,900. Now, not of all kinds. They take out alcohol. Then you go into alcohol-related deaths. CDC attributes 178 16,000 deaths to alcohol, including accidents. 178 to 16,000. 100. And then no one would dare talk about banning alcohol. So whenever someone says, let's talk about gun control, you're not a serious person to me. You're just not. You're an ideological person. You're not talking about data. And then the CDC tells the top 3 causes of death. Guess what they are? Heart disease, 680,000 heart disease. Why aren't we talking about heart disease? 16,000 homicides, 680,000 heart disease, 613,000 cancer. Thank you, Bobby Kennedy, for addressing some of these things. And then accidental injuries of all kinds, 222,000. We're not even in the same galaxy to talk about things. When you talk about homicides, violent crimes, intentional killings, non-natural deaths, non-accident deaths with using a gun. It's not even close. Vehicular, alcohol, heart disease, cancer, and then people that obsess over these guns. And I say this as respectfully as I can. I'm not trying to. I'm just being. You're just not serious to me. You're not serious to try to solve a problem. You're not. So that's one issue. So when you talk about saving lives, all of this I just shared with you has to do with the loss of life. And less than 17,023. The full data is, I mean, not fully out in 24 yet, but I wanted to just give you an idea. It's similar.
Why doesn't this matter, though? Why doesn't it matter?
Well, the stats just reveal an underlying issue here, which is a political issue.
Yes.
You can't use vehicles, right? And you can't use alcohol to protect yourself against a tyrannical state. But guns sure do come in handy. So that's the issue.
Bingo, that's it.
That's it. And I think most Americans at this point recognize that at sort of a gut level that's what's at play here. I think that the 2020 COVID era, I think, exposed a government that was completely out of control, that was steeped in censorship and taking away individual liberties. And so people are much more prickly to that than they've been before. Thank God. There's some good things that came out of COVID, as it was eye-opening to what's been going on in this country for the last several decades, which is a systematic, incremental takeover of a Marxist worldview at the loss of the American traditional Judeo-Christian worldview. And again, that's what's at the heart of this issue. So this is complicated because it's clinical, it's political, it is religious in nature, and it's certainly cultural. So there's a lot of issues going on here. But if you look at, and I was, before we went on break, I was sort of my rant, Nico, about if you look at what's going on, Minnesota is actually a very good example of that. I mentioned how the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, who was a radical ideologue, I mean, the dude spoke at the DNC summer meeting, and he explained how the state, he was proud about this, how the state is suing the Trump administration to protect, quote unquote, gender affirming care, whatever the hell that means. Tim Walz, who we saw during the 2024 campaign season, was just a complete nut job. And I mean, just the height of disingenuousness.
He tempered it on this, though, at least. You got to give him credit. He tempered it versus the mayor.
Because he had friends that were school shooters. We already knew that before. That's why he had to temper it,
but
probably.
a leading cheerleader for signing a bill 2 years ago called the Trans Refuge Bill in Minnesota. Yep. Like, that's a really great idea. His lieutenant governor is just completely unhinged on this issue. And you've got the insufferable Jacob Fry, the Minneapolis mayor. I mean, did you go back and did you listen to his comments?
Yes.
His great concern in this massacre was the direct hate, quote unquote, directed at the trans community, whatever the hell that means. He said, quote, that anybody who was using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity. That was his concern, right? The hate directed at the trans community. That was his focus, right? And then, of course, what he said about thoughts and prayers. You know, there's been sort of a train of mockery, and you know, from Jen Psaki to this loser.
Yeah.
You know, and so and again,
as this guy prayed over George Floyd when he crying, he didn't know George Floyd. I mean, this guy is an actor. These people they're not serious people. They're disgusting to me, and I mean that in the sense of because you don't know where they're coming from, but you know where they're coming from. They're just opportunists. But this overly emotional, and he's getting all passionate, and he wants to rag as if anybody. And George, if I cut you off, I'm sorry. And we're saying that prayer is the only answer. David didn't pray Goliath's head off. He prayed for courage. He prayed for wisdom. He prayed for a steady hand. He prayed for whatever strength because he couldn't even fit into the armor. Saul's armor, right? And he couldn't. So he went in there and he fought Goliath. So prayer is just communication of the human soul to the Lord. That's all it is. It's talking with God. The Bible describes prayer in different ways. I mean, in Exodus, it describes it as God seeking God's favor. If we want the Lord to protect us and give us His favor, pouring our souls out to God. 1 Samuel. Yes, we pour our souls out to God. Some people bitch to society. Well, I bitch to the Lord. I mean, sorry, that's the way I give Him all my problems. Because He can take it, because He's my daddy, He's my heavenly Father, and I can do that to Him, and I can talk to Him in a raw way. Some people cry out to the Lord. In 2 Chronicles 32, you're crying out to the Lord. The Bible describes drawing near to God. When in Psalm 73, and Scripture says He'll draw near to us, and this is the time we need to be near to Him. Or kneeling before the Lord and thanking Him. Ephesians 3, Philippians 4:6. Sorry, this turned into a sermon, but you're going to rag on prayer. We got to defend it. The Scriptures say, Paul says, do not be anxious about anything. But in all situations, including these horrific ones, with prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, still be thankful to the God. Present your request to God, and a peace of God, not the peace of this world that surpasses all earthly understanding, as with my brother's situation, will guard your hearts and your minds. Nothing is guarding our hearts and our minds right now. And so we're going everywhere. We're wandering, like George's point. We're morally bankrupt. We have no definition of right and wrong. Someone's got to come up with these definitions. The world says this is right, this is wrong. If you're not accepting trans ideology and we can't push it on your kid, you're wrong. If you say you believe in a traditional family, you're wrong. This is right. It's always about definitions. And what the Scriptures tell us is the author of life, the architect of the universe, because there is intelligent design. That's where I start with people. Gives us that parameter. That's all. And in that parameter, we're called to love these people, anybody, and people that disagree with us, people that hate us. We're supposed to love. Now, how you show that love's another discussion. There's so many places we can go with this, but the ragging on and the criticizing Jen Psaki on prayer. No one said just to pray. I mean, and the Christians that just talk about. I mean, I'm very constructively critical on them. You pray and you do. You pray and you take action.
And there's just a fallacy about prayer, and you've called out what it actually is. It's not about telling God what to do. It's not about bringing my laundry list before God. It's not about giving him advice. It's actually the opposite. Prayer is about communion with God, with the end result being that I actually think and act and look and walk more like Jesus after prayer, not the other way around. I'm not converting Jesus, He's converting me.
Right. And
prayer is that wonderful communion. It's not transactional. And the way they mock prayer here, it's as if these kids were there asking God or telling God to do something, and because they actually showed up for prayer, that God owes them something and God didn't deliver. That's the notion here that they're pitching, and it's got nothing to do with biblical prayer. That's the point. But what I think is astounding, truly, from CNN to the New York Times to the Washington Post, to USA Today, it's like they had no idea what the motive was.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally danced around it. I mean, you have from the Covenant, Covenant massacre, Covenant School massacre in Nashville in 2023 to now. I mean, you want to talk about transparency about motive? I mean, it's bleak. I actually downloaded the whole thing from this guy, and it's stunning to me. You can literally see the dissociative properties of his personality. I mean, he's literally coming apart at the seams. Yep. He's hating himself at the same time he's espousing transgenderism, but hating it at the same time. Literally saying he's walking down the street and saying that even as he walks down the street, he has no idea sometimes what he's even doing there. I mean, this is a person who's in desperate need of care and never got it. Instead, a political movement exploited that weakness for political power. This is disgusting. This has to stop. And at some point, we really need to look at it for what it is. People that are pushing this stuff, who are in positions of influence and power, need to be held accountable. And I'm not just talking about a slap on the hand. I'm talking about criminally. This is disgusting what's going on. Come on, Nico. It's been around for 10, 15, maybe 20 years. I'd say the earliest one I've seen is from 2011. The peer review literature is loaded with associating SSRIs with the trans community to the tune of half of them. And half of them, by the way, are also on the autistic spectrum. Yeah. And then you dope them up with psychotropic drugs. You fill them up with puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, right? And then you throw SSRIs in there, which, by the way, have a long clinical history of destabilizing behavior, violent crime, homicidal behavior. And, I mean, this is a cocktail of disaster, and we don't know the motive.
To George's point, I didn't read all of it. I read enough. Let me read some of from his manifestos. Right? Maybe I could attack an event. What mindset, what reprobate my heart thinks like this? Maybe I could attack an event on the on-site church. I think attacking a large group of kids coming in from recess is my best plan. Then from there, I can go inside and kill, going as long as I can. Then he further tells his parents, he's like, I'm sorry I didn't. Listen to this. This tells you everything. And this is the battle. This is the battle, and this is what we have to engage, and this is where the church needs to step up and have more influence, and this is where we have to have discussions about ideas and morals. I am sorry, his parents. I am sorry I did not turn out as you hoped. You did not fail me. You gave me so much. Listen to this. I have been corrupted by the world. That's biblical.
Yeah.
And learned to hate what life is. I am tired of the pain this world gives out. Think about that. That tells you everything right there, this battle, you know, this friends with the world, the enmity with God, James 4:4. And then Romans 12, do not conform to the patterns of this world, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. 1 John 2:16, the world is defined as the pride of life, the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. That's the definition of world in this context. And so the world has nothing to offer. When my brother passed away, I was angry. You know, I self-diagnosed myself as a functioning angerholic. And the world told me, I don't blame you. That's what the world told me, Karen. What do I do with that? I become a jerk. I become angry. I become resentful. And you can't give what you don't have. And if I have resentment, unforgiveness, and hate, that's what I'm going to replicate. And the world has no answers. That's what I was trying to make the point distinction between faith and this world.
Every time I look at that, I had to look at it a couple of times. Not only, I didn't read the manifesto, but I watched the video. I thought to myself, if this isn't the closest thing that I've ever seen to an actual demonic possession of a human being, I don't know what is.
That's actually part of the manifesto. I think he
Okay.
believes that he was possessed.
Well, I think he was possessed also. But the parents, wasn't he living at home? I'd still go back to that and wonder, what were the signs?
The mom lived out of town. That's another discussion about the mom.
Okay, we are going to take a break right now. Please stick with us. Thank you so much for joining us online, and we will continue after the show. So if you haven't got online yet, please do. We will be right back with more on Sidebar.
San Antonio's news, weather, traffic, plus breaking news 24/7. This is News Radio 1200 WOAI from the GiveMeTheVin.com Sell Us Your Cars studio.
I'm Eric Lycum at News Radio 1200 WOAI. New congressional districts in Texas have been signed into law by Governor Abbott, and they're already facing court challenges. Details coming up. First, traffic and weather together.
From the WOAI Traffic Center.
35 southbound between Olympia Parkway and Loop 1604. We've got some construction that has the right lane closed. Over on Loop 410 southbound, the on-ramp from Binns Engelman is closed due to construction. I'm Alexis, News Radio 1200 WOAI.
High 90s this afternoon. We've got sunshine 78, the WOAI 24-hour weather center, our top story. Governor Greg Abbott signs legislation that redraws the state's congressional boundaries in order to make them more Republican-friendly.
It ensures fairer representation in the United States Congress for Texans.
A pair of lawsuits have already been filed to stop that redistricting, which was backed by President Trump. Former Vice President Kamala Harris will now be protected by the California Highway Patrol after losing her Secret Service detail. Citing law enforcement sources, LA Times reports Harris will get dignitary protection after President Trump revoked her Secret Service protection. College football season kicks off with the University of Texas Longhorns visiting the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll have pregame at 10, kickoff at 11 with Craig Way and a gang here on WOAI. News on demand at WOAI.com. Our next update, top of the hour, breaking information as it happens. I'm Eric Lycum on San Antonio's news, weather, and traffic station, News Radio 1200 WOAI.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Some people just know you could save money on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Those people are probably saving a carload of cash right now. So what are you waiting for? Check Allstate first for a quote today. You're in good hands with Allstate.
WOAI. This is Sidebar. Go to sidebartv.com and find a social media platform to join, because we will continue at 10 o'clock right after the show and continue with this discussion. There's so many questions that I want to ask, and the one that we left the break with is like, where were the parents? Who knew? But I mean, what can be done obviously somebody didn't just say, "Oh, the guy with the 10 guns is such a weirdo." Like, how is it that people should have prevented this from happening? Can it be prevented? Who knew? I mean, where do we even start?
Nico, he's 23. He was 23 years old. He underwent an official name change in 2017. Yeah, exactly. And with his mother's approval. And that is another important question. Where's mom? My understanding is that she's lawyered up at this point. But where was mom? It's not about blaming the parents, but what the hell was mom thinking in allowing this to happen? And as you look at the reason for the name change, it gets back to, again, trans ideology that's seeped in, and she's affirming as if that's the loving thing to do. This is the problem. We think it's the loving thing to do now as a culture, when in fact we're destroying our kids from the inside out. This is a complete tragedy every which way you look at it. And the idea that there aren't going to be consequences, and why is it directed at Christianity? And that's an important conversation, because that's a thread here. It's a pattern. There's a reason for that. I mean, Christianity defines what a man is and what a woman is, and the role of men and women and husbands and wives and parents and children. And elevates children. It says, Psalm 127:3, that children are a true gift from God. They're a reward from the Lord. Isaiah 54:13, and all your children will be taught by the Lord, and great will be your children's peace. This idea of men and women raising children in stable homes. If you're a Christian and you read the scripture, you can see how God is central to that. But if you're not a Christian, for a long time, I mean, no one would dispute that children are considered sacred, a central part of a relationship of a mom and dad. And so there's a reason, it seems to me, you go after Christianity because it is a philosophical firewall. It is truly the antithesis of what you believe, which is that men can be women and women can be men. You are caught in this constant battle against reality. And here's a clue. Eventually, reality wins. I don't care how many endocrinologists, I don't care how many physicians tell you that what you're doing is wonderful. I don't care how many efforts politically there are to praise these people as sort of holy victims. I mean, we trot them about as if they should be eulogized. It is a sickness. That won't matter. At some point, reality is going to win. And then why kids? I really think that these individuals look at kids almost as if they are the way they'll never be. You see children in mass praying. There's stability, there's peace. This is an existence these individuals will never know. And the idea that there's rage against it seems to me entirely logical. This is a heartbreak. And the culture, the political culture is behind this. This is disgusting to me. This is the part that makes me outraged, that there is an enormous amount of political power that's being built on this, on the backs of these kids, it seems to me, in the name of compassion, when the exact opposite is being done. So the financial gain of it is disgusting. And so, and this is not conservatives pushing this, okay? This is a party that thinks this is a good idea, and they're not backing off from this. Listen to the Minnesotan political leadership. No one's backing off on Nico. They're doubling down on this stuff.
I think if you haven't gone back to listen to it, I think it's been over a year now. Bill Maher's analysis on this, I think, was excellent.
I haven't heard it.
Well, he just talks about, he looks at data. He looked at how many identified as transgender, how many lived in an LGBT lifestyle, and he just went through. This is Bill Maher, by the way, and that's why I like Bill. I don't agree with him on everything, but I like him. I mean, I like that he has conversations with tough people. I mean, meaning that tough conversations with people that disagree with him. I like that he'll reason. I like that he'll disagree with quote unquote his side. I just that's a good traits for me. And he does this analysis. We talked about this before, George, and he goes into it. And he made a joke at the end about it. It's like, well, by 2050, half of us, we're all going to be gay. I mean, he had to be the comedian side of it also. But I mean, he does this
ridiculous.
But he just said there's something going on. Why are we having these numbers of people that identify these kids from very minuscule numbers to it's growing and growing and growing because it's being pushed by a culture, a society. It's being accepted, especially by a political party. His party being the one that Republicans aren't doing it. And again, that's just an objective observation. You can disagree or agree all you want. I'm just objectively looking at this. And he does a great analysis. He does, and I thought it was very good. No one really had a retort to it because he's just looking at data and he's asking a question. What are we doing? It seems like this is a self-made problem, so to speak. He didn't call it a problem, but he's a situation. I'm not sure. I don't want to use the exact words he used, and I don't recall. But all I'm saying is, I think his analysis is legitimate, and we need to look at it.
It really, really is. I saw the
Do
same.
you remember?
I agree. No, it really is. He doesn't get into the weeds, but he's backed up by 15 years of solid clinical science showing a clear association. Two things: SSRIs in the culture generally.
Yes.
Generally in the culture. And I'm thinking about journals, for instance. And my favorite, I think, is most robust, is in 2011, done by a Swedish researcher by the name of Cecilia Dene, Dhejne, and she did a horizontal analysis. This is the study. When I have mentioned to you in the past, you've always said, well, what about this? You always bring up a confounding factor, and I want to talk about this because that seems to be like a knee-jerk reaction. I've even read it in the media this week, and it's not a great argument. And it is that basically the horizontal analysis found that you've got individuals that are 19-fold. It's a 19-fold higher risk of suicidal risk if you're a transgender. And they root that in the types of basically drug cocktails that they're being subjected to. So whether you are trans and you are taking puberty blocker and cross-sex hormones,
What if you just identify? Do they have that breakdown?
Well,
Because you don't have to be taking puberty blockers and going through the transition, but you can identify, like, I don't know what this dude did, but I mean,
that falls in the realm of another mental disorder. But this is where you're actually taking drugs or going through surgery.
Okay,
This is the populations that they're looking at, and when they look at that, you're talking about 19 times more risk of suicidal risk relative to the culture. And this is a horizontal analysis done in Sweden. You always bring up the idea, well, is it because they're stigmatized? Is that why? Now,
Well, that's the argument. Yeah, that's the argument.
I don't particularly think that's a great argument. Thank goodness for stigmas, because we need some stigmas in societies. We don't want stigmas for good behavior, but we certainly want stigmas for things we don't want proliferated in the culture. So I'm not really sure that's a great argument. But also, the study was done in Sweden. There is no country in the world that is more accepting of trans and LGBTQ plus issues in Sweden, and it was conducted there. So in terms of cultural pressures, that confounding factor is corrected for, just given the environment of where the study was collected over time. And it's horizontal, it's across decades. That's in 2011. We had Lagerberger et al. In 2020, 2 years or 5 years before that, Malera et al. This is in the Public Library of Science. There's been studies in Europe. I'm thinking about the European Journal of Neuropsychopharmacology. I mean, these are meta-analyses where they look at hundreds of thousands of people. And you've got a 26% to 43% of people who will resort to violence or homicidal behavior because they are on SSRIs. Nothing to do with trans. That number is precipitously larger if you're trans and you're on SSRIs. We've known about this forever. The media looks at this and yawns as if it's not a thing. This is not just peripheral, this is central. This is the problem. We've got a nasty multi-drug cocktail running through the veins of these individuals that are making bad worse. And we're acting like we're doing some great thing. And then we turn them into heroes. This is a counterfeit religion now. And it's got to be called out. This is terrible. We got to step back and push back. And so I want to know, I do. I mean, this is I think the Trump administration is taking significant measures to push back on this nonsense. But it's not just Trump. It can't just be about Trump. This has to be a multi-state endeavor to push back against
And
this.
I think there
This
needs
is
to be a
travesty.
distinction between children and adults. You just have to, I believe, adults. Look, I mean, we all know someone that identifies in that manner. I do.
I was just going to ask
we
you
all
about
do,
that.
and not all
but
of them are
right,
psychopaths.
It wasn't like that
we have
before.
To, well, no, I mean, you know, I always say that I got my hair cut by Amber, but and I chose to call her by what she wanted to call, because that was back then, and my relationship with her, and it was my choice. It wasn't forced on me, and precious. I mean, I just think the world of her. She knows my wife. I mean, we haven't seen her in years, but I mean, I just think the world of her. And I'm not worried about her walking into a school doing something like this. And we know other people like that. So I mean, but we still have to contend with this data. Is I think what I'm trying to say with George is saying here. It's got to be part of the discussion. When you look at the shootings in the past, you have to okay, what is it? What's the common denominator? And to George's point earlier, I was watching a clip of one of the news media, left-leaning news media, and they stumbled over themselves not to bring it up. Even though they accidentally, this one lady, the former FBI agent on CNN or NBC, well, I don't know, one of the left-leaning ones, just she stumbled over it, and she said, "Well, I'm not saying it was because now I mean, it was so bad, it was so obvious." Yes,
yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, and it's not what it's not. Let's look at the evidence. Let the chips fall where they fall. Period. End of story. And so what's the answer? Like, how could we have prevented this? Well, number one, we work on the moral compass of this country. We work on SSRI drugs, but those aren't immediate fixes. You want an immediate fix? Well, you put people with armed guards around schools. It's just that simple. You want an immediate fix in D.C.? You bring in the National Guard, and look what happened. 14 days, not a murder. You have the Mayor Bowser saying, like, you know what, this is working. You have people saying, I can go to dinner, I can go to businesses. Businesses are thriving in the evening after 5 o'clock. I mean, there's this ripple effect. People can breathe. You feel like you can move and live and go back to disagreeing. If you don't have a safe society, you can't go back to having our passionate, hopefully respectful political debates trying to persuade each other. I believe in that. I believe in the unity and diversity idea of a university where you bring ideas to the court of public opinion, you share them, you have free thought, you have free expression of that thought, and let the best idea win, and let's look at data to support your position. And so that's how you do. You want an immediate fix? You put 2 armed guards. Well, I would put 1 in uniform and 1 in plain clothes. And every school, that's going to be an immediate fix. If that psychopath would have walked up there, he might have seen the armed guard, and that armed guard is kind of a sitting duck, so you got to be alert. You can't just be sitting there scrolling through your phone all day long. And you want that job to be boring because you've been such a deterrent, but you have to be alert. Yeah. Security is about being proactive, not reactive. And then you have the plainclothes person that's communicating through radio, and they're watching and they're looking at the parking lots, because you're going to see someone come in through a parking lot. They're not going to parachute out from the sky, and if they do, you shoot them in the sky. I mean, so there's things that can be done right now, and the answer is not going through legislation and attacking a weapon that is percentage wise is not the issue. And again, let's please be serious. Let's be objective. Let's be logical and not emotional, and let's address the issue. And this is not it. Taking guns away.
When did that become too much to ask? Pay attention to the facts. Look at the background. Know what you're doing. Know what drugs can do. I mean, those seem like such simple things, but here we are.
It doesn't serve a political purpose. That's exactly.
Okay, we're going to take a break, and we will be right back for the last segment here on WOAI. So please try to hop on a social media platform. You can find one at sidebartv.com. We'll be right back.
With reputations as respected high-level prosecutors in Bexar County, the attorneys of LaHood Norton Law Group bring invaluable practical knowledge from the other side of the aisle, using over 70 years of combined experience to strategically advocate clients' rights and pursue the best possible outcome.
I'm Nico LaHood with LaHood Norton Law Group. Have you been arrested or accused of a crime? The LaHood Norton Law Group has the knowledge to defend you regardless of how small or large your case. In Bexar County, anywhere in the state, or even nationwide, we have the knowledge to defend you in federal or state court, no matter how small or large your case. We are trial lawyers with proven success.
Using their 70 years of combined experience to strategically advocate for their clients' rights and pursue the best possible outcome. The LaHood Norton Law Group. For a free consultation, call today, 210-797-7700. 210-797-7700. LaHoodNorton.com.
This is Nico LaHood. If you or a loved one has been arrested or accused of a crime, we can help.
LaHoodNorton.com.
1200 WOAI, this is Sidebar. You're right. There are so many facets to this conversation that we hopefully will get a chance to discuss this on the after show. Also, a lot of people are also asking, and maybe we can fit this information into, is why are so many judges still trying to stop everything that Trump is doing? And when you start to think about all of the topics that Trump has tried to hit head on, whether it be, illegal immigration or safety on our streets or this transgender issue, he seems to be understanding and handling all them. But the bigger question for me is, when will the people who identify as Democrat still take all of this information and say that it is about a political party, that it's not about human beings that maybe need help or people that are breaking the law, the illegals? I mean, how does this all fit together?
Well, I'm not sure where you want to go with this, but I'll just tell you this. As someone who's been in politics and ran under the Democrat platform, an old school blue dog, which doesn't exist anymore, by the way. Because the Democrats in my growing up believed in the small guy, the underdog, and fought, David versus the Goliath. And the Republicans were known as big business and religious right, kooky people and whatever, and a bunch of stiff heads, and they don't know how to laugh, and they're not into free speech, and they want to control you, and all. I mean, that was growing up. And Dems were always, polled better than Republicans in general. And then you got older and you started worrying about your taxes, and your kids, you're like, well, I don't know, maybe those Republicans weren't that crazy. Maybe I'm turning into one of those stiff heads. And that's kind of how it was back in the day. And now it's something different. And so the older Democrats today, I don't know, and I say this lovingly because I have many, many friends that I love dearly, dearly. The older Democrats, older being, I would say 40 and up, maybe 50 for sure. I don't know how you can logically and objectively defend being a Democrat today versus when we were growing up, because they're not the same party. They're not even standing for the same things. And so when you look at ideas, and I always talk about ideas have consequences, not all ideas are the same. The ideas of the current Democrat Party are very, very different. And I've brought this up before. Just listen to Bill Clinton's speeches, Hillary Clinton's speeches, Joe Biden's speeches, Schumer, Feinstein, Reid, all the old school Democrats. Look at what their speeches and what they were defending and advocating for. And then today, and you think to yourself, wait a minute, this is not the same ideas under this platform. Because a political party is just a platform to advocate ideas to affect the lives of others, right? That's the definition of politics. Set of ideas advocated by a group of people to affect the lives of others. And so I don't know how an older Democrat today that's been a Democrat, quote unquote, all their life can defend the ideas of the current Democrat Party versus the Democrat Party that we all grew up under. I don't know how you do that logically and consistently and objectively, because then it turns to me as then this becomes more of a religion, that I'm a Democrat no matter what. Like, if I vote Republican, but if the Republican Party lost their effing minds, I wouldn't vote Republican anymore. I'm not a Republican. I vote Republican, right? Because it's a set of ideas. It's not my identity. And the right does this too. I'm a Republican. I got it. I support ideas. My ideas, as people know, I have a biblical worldview. Some people have an Islamic worldview. Some have a Hindu, Buddhist, atheist, agnostic, whatever. And then you look for the platform that supports your worldview. That's all it is. Anyone that says, I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat, I think they need to really consider not saying that anymore. I mean, I support the Republican ideas. I support the Republican Democrat platform. But that's not who you are or I am. Because what if because then I challenge it. The ideas change. Now what? You're still a Democrat? Okay, then that is your identity, and you don't care about the ideas. Then for whatever reason, you're hooked onto this label.
And that's why it's so crazy for somebody to change parties like you, because they're like, oh my God, were you lying to us before? Or that's the first question I always hear people say. Well, what made you change? Why? This is what you used to believe, but you're saying...
I don't believe anything different. When people say, when did you change?
Exactly.
I mean, when I first... when I was in office, I was on Joe Pags, and I said, look, the party is... I didn't want to use the party left me. I didn't leave the party. I said, the party's been hijacked. Because it's been hijacked. Yeah. Because there's a lot of good people in the Democrat platform and party that are faith-based, traditional, just old school blue dog Democrats. That don't believe in all this hostile takeover, but they're just so tied to the label of being a Democrat. They just can't imagine not being a Democrat.
I sometimes wonder if it doesn't, the older society, I sometimes wonder if it isn't because they're still watching like ABC, CBS, NBC News, because you think, well, how could, they're not lying about stuff, are they? That's the only thing I can think of.
I think a lot of it's sentimental. Party affiliation is sort of passed down in families. I don't typically know a Democrat individual who votes Democrat and their whole family's Republican. That exists. I just don't think that's that common. I vote Democrat. My daddy voted Democrat. His daddy voted Democrat. There's a lot of that, and it tends to be rather sentimental. So when Nico asks a question like, how would you defend it? It's a sentimental defense. It's not rooted in logic. In fact, the party they describe when they're defending it is an old party.
Right.
It's now extinct. Okay. On all kinds of issues on that platform. And so I think it's important to come back and say, and we were touching on this during the break, on issues like the issues that put Trump not just over the top, but significantly over the top cross-demographically in 2024. Those concerns haven't changed. Not one damn bit. On issues of border security and illegal immigration and transgender issues and crime, there's some interrelatedness between illegal immigration and crime. None of that's gone away. In fact, Trump's policies in D.C., at least according to the Associate Press, no bastion of conservatism, are very popular. A good significant majority of people agree with the measures that Trump is taking. And you've got a general concern in the population that hasn't abated since 2024. 8 in 10 people, 80% of people that are queried are very concerned about a massive crime problem in the inner cities. And the reality is that a lot of major cities, the majority, are controlled by Democrats. You literally have to go down to the 20th city on the list of high crime cities on the FBI reports before you find a city that's controlled by a Republican mayor. And this is one of the reasons.
Crazy.
I know people think that Gavin Newsom is going to run for president in 2028. I am praying to the Lord Jesus that happens. I really am. And I think, and I can't say it on this side, I'll say it on the other side, Nico.
Okay,
because
good.
I'll use
Thank
Trumpian
you.
language to do that. but the issue is this. Newsom does very, very well. He's very polished. He's great in front of a microphone until you got somebody who pushes those buttons. I've gone back and watched a couple of videos in the LaHood tradition. I've gone back to the time when he was literally appointed by Willie Brown, I think as a traffic supervisor, and then he became mayor and he became lieutenant governor.
Is that when he banged his best friend's wife?
Yeah, the marital indiscretions, the media called it at the time.
Guy's
No, that's
disgusting.
actually true.
Go ahead.
And that's actually one of the videos. I'll send it to
I
you.
know.
And he was pressed on that, and you can literally see him coming undone.
Yeah.
The gel starts coming undone in the hair. You know, the facial starts, the facial expression starts contorting. He can't handle pressure. And so all you have to do, I mean, I would love the opportunity to politically debate this guy, because all you have to do is simply go to the record. If you can study the record and you can find a way to articulate it in ways that people can understand, this guy will come undone. This guy has been one record of failure after another. And when it comes to crime, that's at the top of the list. And he had the cojones this week to put out ads on social media calling out Republican governors, from DeSantis to Abbott to I forgot his name. Is it Bill Lee in Tennessee? Look that up, Jeff. And Tate Reeves in Tennessee. Mississippi. And then he called out Josh Hawley in Missouri. And I thought to myself, these are BS stats. He's basically comparing cities. He's saying to Abbott, hey, Los Angeles has much better crime level, a much lower crime level, let's say, than Houston or Dallas. And he puts Abbott's picture on there. Every one of these cities that you go
Democrat
to
mayor cities
are controlled by Democrat mayors.
know.
Every single one. Like Abbott's going to do anything about that. Like DeSantis is going to do something. Like Josh Hawley is in charge of St. Louis, Missouri. You literally have to go back decades in every single one of these cities to find a Republican mayor. And this is the kind of thing that people viscerally know in California. There's a reason why they've left by the hundreds of thousands, Nico. But Gavin Newsom is representative of where the party is in terms of crime. I don't know how that's a winning.
But he's
ticket.
good. But look, I told you he's formidable. That when I said this week that got Salvo and everybody, what are you talking about? That he's doing great. He got like a 450% increase in his followers. I mean, he's getting attention.
But I want to.
Now, whether they're watching a train wreck, but people are, but
Right,
not
right.
people can still check him out without following him. I think following, you guys are the experts on him. You know, I'm not a social media dude, but I mean, for someone to say I want to follow you versus I can check his stuff anytime you want to, you don't need to follow somebody.
Why is it bad to follow somebody? I do, because I just want to see what they're saying.
No, I'm just saying I think that it means something more than just checking their stuff.
Okay,
You don't
yeah.
need to
You've got
follow them.
hundreds
to
of
look
I like the
at
thousands
stuff.
of
train
people
wreck.
that have literally engaged in an exodus out of California. How do we know that? How do we feel? That's personal to us, isn't it? Because they're all coming
They're
here.
here.
Or
Right.
to Florida.
Tennessee or
Interesting.
Florida.
Ironically enough, he pulled out DeSantis and Abbott. And all of his people are going there for a reason, which is interesting. That's one of the first things I'd bring up. Why are they leaving your state then? Because they're coming over to me. And it must not be because you're that great. But if you look at what's going on in California, he's basically preaching to the choir. I mean, these are people, the people that are left are the people that are okay with the chaos.
Yeah.
That's the point. But the numbers are not funny. I mean, hundreds of
Look,
thousands
he cannot
of people.
defend this. That's why he's truly a snake oil salesman. I mean, the guy is just he's full of it. Shh. But I mean,
It's not
he's
the Trumpian hour
He's
yet.
so full of it. I mean, he really is. I mean, but he's good. You gotta know your opponent. He's a formidable talker. He knows how to twist facts. You got to have someone in front of you, not just knows the data, but they can debate and banter with the data.
Exactly.
Look, I
And
think
smile
J.D.
while
Vance
he
would
does
just
it.
destroy
Push
him.
back.
I think J.D. Vance is an excellent
Yes.
debater and would destroy
Indeed.
him. But look, the proof is in the pudding. Ron is not a great debater, but he's a good talker. He's different. That's a different skill. And so Ron laid it out, but when he comes to debating and style and charisma, Ron just doesn't have it. But Ron even destroyed him with the facts.
Yeah.
So let's see. Look, Newsom is redefining terms. I mean, he's calling and he's taking the position. I think I even saw a clip where he's talking about more police presence. And I mean, just like he did when China was coming in, he cleaned up the streets all of a sudden.
Right.
Don't say you can't do this. So why aren't you doing this? That's all you got to say. Why did you clean it up for China and you can't clean it up for San Franciscans or whatever they call themselves, or California?
This is an excellent
That's all
point.
you say, and then play the Jeopardy music. No, I don't want to talk about anything else. Answer that question. Why'd you do it? Because you clearly can do it.
But Trump's beat him to it. Trump is acting authentically. This is Trump. He's just doing what is Trumpian. And now you've got Gavin stepping up, whatever his name is, the gel guy. He steps up to the plate now, right? Steps up to the plate, in air quotes, to be Trump light. No one believes that stuff. No one believes any of it.
But it's working to an extent.
In California, but that's not a national ticket.
We don't know where that's at. I mean, he's getting followers. I don't know how you trace where his followers are coming from. It's working. And then the people that are so tied to the Democrat Party at all costs. I mean, people that hate Trump so much, they even hate his ideas. The people that aren't supporting what's happening in D.C. are nuts. People on the ground, boots on the ground, they're like, this is great. Mayor Bowser said, it's working. It's good. Good for her. I mean, she doesn't seem like she's a loony on the left side. I mean, she obviously leans very left, but she's calling balls and strikes.
When you've got homicides and burglaries dropping by double digits, carjackings by 87%.
Insane.
And the Democrat council people in her own venue just wailed on her.
Yeah.
But this is the madness. I mean, this isn't lost on voters.
Well, look, guys, we're going to continue this conversation. Thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoyed this discussion. But join us on the after show on sidebartv.com, on one of our social platforms. We're going to be talking for another 30, 45 minutes, maybe taking your questions. We'd like to hear your comments. We'll look through them a little bit after about a 30-second break or so, and then we'll keep continuing on. Enjoy this extended weekend. God bless your family. Hug your children. If you're a prayerful person, pray for this country and pray for peace over the families that lost their loved ones. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.
Okay, George was just asking me, Nico, if I could read him some of the comments that were given by all of the people that were on. And thank you so much for joining us, like Mike and Renee and Nancy, Patricia, Jessica, Angelina, Annette, Jean. But you asked.
Is Alamo Talk here with us?
Well, that's exactly who I was about to read.
My
because
buddy.
I think Alamo Talk, he says things to get the entire audience on Facebook just riled up. But I said, well, most of them are just made up stuff. And I
think he believes. I don't know if I don't know his intent. He'll have to, I think he believes it.
Maybe, but so George says, read me one that you think is made up, Karen. So I said, okay, here's one. Alamo Talk 2.0, whatever that means, says California's 2024 homicide rate was 4.3% per 100,000 people, and that represents a 10.4 decrease from 2023's rate of 4.8 per 100,000. The 2024 rate is the second lowest since at least 1966.
Very thankful that Alamo Talk tunes in week after week.
Yeah, man.
Very grateful that you attend.
Yes.
You got to take Nico up on the invitation,
On
right?
lunch.
Yeah,
I asked him. We want to go to lunch, yeah.
In the meantime, you've probably noticed I'm not as nice as Nico, which is why I'm not afraid to tell you that everything you just said is complete bullshit. You see, the problem is that California's reporting techniques have been called out year after year after year. There's a piece by Axios in 2023 that calls out a problem nationally, but pinpoints California as the worst offender. There's 40% of law enforcement agencies in the country don't even report data to the FBI or report very incomplete data. Have been called out in those reports. Read the article piece if you want. I can send it to Jeff or Karen. They can post it online. You can read it. California is the worst offender. It's about 2% of law enforcement agencies that are reporting that data. So you can take those numbers, and I'm not sure what the correct terminology is today.
Yeah.
What's the place where the sun doesn't shine where you can put them? Come on, give me a break. This isn't this, which is one of the reasons why Gavin. I can never say the guy's name.
Gavin, like Gavin.
What is my problem with this guy? I'll just call him that. Newsom. One of the reasons why his attacks, I think, fell flat. I read a piece. I can't remember who wrote it. I read way too much this week, but somebody drew the analogy of him posting all these social media ads as complete self-fails and said it was like the Jim Carrey movie Liar Liar, where he said, "I'm kicking my own ass." And you have the video of him doing that. And it's a very funny movie, by the way. And it's exactly what was going on. Everything he put up, if you do any kind of, that's why I said J.D. Vance would just have a heyday on this. And any slight scrutiny of that would just literally invert the argument against Newsom. It was just a complete fail. When in reality, if you look at Democrat city after Democrat city, according to FBI reports, and I'm happy to send you that data too, Alamo Talk, you literally have to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma at place number 20 before you find a Republican governor. 19
He just
cities.
made another comment, by the way. He says, with all due respect, I love that term, red states have higher rates of murder per capita than blue states.
With all due respect, I just said, and I'll send you the article, with all due respect, Axios, which is no Republican or conservative source of data, has reported that data that's reported repeatedly by Democrat strongholds are incomplete data. The bullshit that's going on in D.C. right now,
well, they got called out for that, yeah.
That same shit's going on in California, brother. And I'll send you the piece. You can read it. Again, it's not Fox News. And then let's go from there. Maybe you can call them out. Maybe you can write an editorial.
So what he's talking about is that D.C. was called out because it's self-reporting.
You mean what I'm referring to?
Yes.
Okay.
So the Uniform Crime Report is a national reporting system it relies on self-reporting by the local agencies. The Uniform UCR, they call it the UCR report. It comes out every year, and they look at data points. But they rely on individuals and individual municipalities and cities reporting, self-reporting. And so if you're having this issue with self-reporting, it's like the VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System. Exactly. That's a self-reporting system. And then those numbers still suck. I mean, and that's just the 1% reporting versus what really is out there.
Good comparison.
Should scare the hell out of you. But so then the question is, well, how the hell do you know anything? Fair enough. Then I don't know what objectively, and maybe that's the bean counter to my left here that understands these smart people can figure out how to gather information and data. We just know that there's a problem with the reporting. So when you have this, I mean, Alamo Talk, he's saying what's being reported. He's not making that up, but it's not accurate. And then it's convenient to say, oh yeah, when you don't like it, it's not accurate. I don't function that way. I want the truth. And all you can do is you look at these cities. You look at every major city run by a Democrat mayor and ideas that a Democrat mayor and a Democrat city council brings to the table, and it just sucks. You know that. I mean, look at D.C., Alamo Talk. Look at anywhere you look at. Look at Houston. I mean, look at Portland. Look at Seattle. Look at San Francisco. Look at L.A. Look at Chicago. Look at, Baltimore. Look at any of these places, New York, at different places in New York. And people don't feel safe. There's very strict gun laws. Oh, there's that pesky thing again, those damn guns. There's very strict gun laws, and the bad guys are still having guns. Drugs are outlawed too, but drugs are still very prevalent. Why? Because criminals don't give two shits about laws. I'm kind of in that business. So all I'm saying is that you have to look at these things, and we have to look at it objectively. And so you have to say, what set of ideas do we want to move forward? We have a border that the Democrats said could not be closed. That was a lie. That was either a lie or gross incompetence. Neither one of them I want running anything that has to affect my family. Because within a week, 2 weeks tops, that border was controlled. D.C., it's always been that way. I have buddies of mine that used to be D.C. cops, and but their hands were bootstrapped, and no one really had an intent to try to solve this problem. And then you have what happened here. Within days, you have D.C. with a completely different culture, and people are rejoicing. Businesses are rejoicing. People that resisted Trump are saying, hey, I was wrong. This is not. Now, as a conservative small government dude, do I want the military with long rifles, indexing their finger on the corner, looking around, looking over my shoulder? Well, no, I don't want that to be the norm. But do I want that, or do I want carjackings and I can't carry my gun, and if I use my gun, I'm going to be prosecuted, and all this other bullshit in there? I'll take the uniformed officer or the uniformed military guy on the corner, as long as they're not looking into my bags and trying to control me and be a fascist. I mean, look. So there's not two things can be true at the same time. We have to look at these things. This is temporary until we can establish a new norm. Yeah. Until the local police can learn from it and say, hey, you know what? People do like this. Now it's politically okay to do it. Think about it. It's all about politics and what the people. We have to hear from the people. And I wish we could. And I say this over and over again. I wish we could just shelf the labels. Can we just piss off with labels for a second and talk about ideas? Bill Clinton said illegal immigration was a threat. Bill Clinton, I'm going to say it. President Bill Clinton was right. Bill Clinton passed a crime bill, a national crime bill. And now some of it went too far. Biden went too far on the sentencing guidelines on the federal system. I won't bore you with the details, but anything can go too far. You have Soros DA, and then you have the DAs around these local areas, believe it or not, in counties close to Bexar County, that think that everybody's guilty and that everybody needs to go to prison. And everybody's okay with that because when you're looking at a Soros DA, you're thinking, shit, this sucks. We need to send those people to prison. But what about your kid that gets a possession of a controlled substance? They want to go to prison? Well, not my mijito. Not him. He needs a chance to redeem. No, you wanted to counter the Soros person, and so now everybody goes to prison. And both of them are wrong, is my point. There's a redemptive side to the justice system, and then there's a fist side. There's a harsh side to the justice system. And that's why Lady Justice carries a scale and has a sword. She has both. She balances it all out. And so all I'm saying is we have to start looking at ideas. The ideas that, in my opinion, that the Democrat Party is espousing today are not good ideas even for themselves. Even for Democrats that are voting for these ideas are not good ideas. Who says these are not good ideas? When you talk about open borders, when you talk about high crime, when you talk about not prosecuting violent criminals, when you're talking about not having government, when you have government-controlled businesses, these are not good ideas. That's all I'm saying. Now, we can get into the faith side of it and family. I think a nuclear family is a good idea. I think the objective data backs it up. A mama and a daddy working together to lovingly raise their children. I believe in the admonitions of the Lord that even if you're not a Christian, that you'll benefit from those, by the way. That's just, and I think that we can have a discussion objectively on that, because we're looking at society today, and who thinks the society's doing great? I don't know. I mean, if you do, then I want to know. I want to talk about your definitions. I don't think society's doing well. So there you go. George, take over.
I mean, this is going back too many topics, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
We're going everywhere.
No, I'm going to ask it anyway. But
go ahead.
Going back to these depression or SSRI drugs.
Okay.
So if you have a child that's under 18 or whatever the age is to get these drugs, I mean, do the parents have to sign for them in order for the kids to take those drugs?
They have to approve them. Yeah, it's like your kid getting any medication.
I guess I'm just confused.
I know where you might be going.
Okay,
because
go
we
ahead,
have report after report of schools actually pushing, and it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a number of schools that were doing these things surreptitiously without parental consent.
Yeah.
And they found a way into lawsuits. That's exactly right.
And I keep on thinking, I mean, shouldn't even the parents have some sort of mental test if they're allowing their kids to take these drugs that are I mean, I guess not officially, but obviously causing a lot of problems for them mentally.
Why isn't this child abuse? I think is the question.
Because it's accepted. I mean,
Exactly.
I know, but just like Hollywood, how many kids, how many people in Hollywood have trans kids? All of them. It's like...
No, but I think this is why I think it's of a religious nature. It's no longer like a rational discussion. There's something religious about this. And you got to go back to, I guess, the data that we shared earlier, and we spent a whole show on our rate of Christianity. I think that happens to be at the crux of the issue. The Cultural Research Center, Arizona Christian University, has reported in the 2025 American Worldview Inventory, again, that 2/3 of Americans don't believe that there's any such thing as absolute truth, whereas an absolute moral truth is a truth that doesn't change with the circumstances. And so when that starts being the case, and the locus of authority, as the study reported, is your feelings or your perception, your individualized perception of what should be done. When that becomes the locus of authority, how do you not end up with chaos? And so, when you look at what's going on in the LGBTQ plus cult, and I believe it is cultic, they take sexual preferences and they geniusly, and I want to give credit where credit is due, this is a malignant genius that found a way to bring this under the umbrella of civil rights, because then they became untouchable, right? Because there's been a legitimate stigma in the country. Why would you be against civil rights? Right. Do you want to be a person who's known for being against civil rights? No. So it was just brilliantly played, and this is how same-sex marriage became a thing in 2015. I remember having that conversation with Nico, like it was 5 minutes ago, and we said, man, after this, what isn't possible? I remember asking the question and just sort of rhetorically talking about that, and that's truly the case. Tell me why pedophilia isn't a good idea after a while. In other words, when you start taking natural boundaries and cultural boundaries that have been recognized for thousands of years in organized human cultures, and when they become a matter of subjective interpretation, please tell me why we're going to have more stability rather than less stability.
Why is it against the law to have polygamy? Under this idea, right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. I mean, what's the problem with having more than one spouse? I mean,
see, we're looking collectively now, but take it to the individual. Let's talk about this Robert Westman. I mean, you have an identity that's built on the rejection of a natural boundary, so it's always going to be unstable. I mean, how are you going to survive that constant contradiction? Because now reality isn't just inconvenient, it's your enemy. That's the point. It never goes away. And so, and you can see how this is sort of, at first it was censorship, just don't say anything. And then you start changing terms because you got to accommodate sensitivities. And then you start changing laws. And then you change your schools. And then all of a sudden that's never enough, right? Because reality's still there. Now it becomes coercion. And then coercion becomes violence. That's my point. Reality never goes away. And so violence becomes the final frontier. And so I really, just my heart breaks. I don't want any more kids. I don't want any more lives lost on the altar of this very fake and destructive religion. This is more than a politics. It's more than a culture. This is religious in nature. We deify these individuals, Nico. We look at them. I mean, this is how the media spins it, that they should be in some sense lauded. Like when they announce they're transgender, we ought to celebrate this. It's a sickness, and we damn well better take it seriously. That's my view.
Well, remember when and Biden? I'm just curious. Someone posted whatever happened to that intern dude? It was super feminine, had those long fingernails. Mm-hmm. And remember in the Biden
airport?
No, that bald dude, that guy. I'm talking about the bald one that kept stealing purses at the airports. I'm talking about the intern. They was doing these TikTok things or whatever, and all that stuff was going on, and whatever happened to him? I mean, I don't know whatever happened to that guy. I mean, whether that was just an act or whether really was his personality.
I've totally forgotten about that.
Do you remember that dude?
Yeah, I do. No,
I mean, he would do all these videos. I mean, so it was truly pushed under Biden, and that was that era that it really pushed, and people thought they were doing good by doing that, and then
but we're learning that this hasn't gone away just because Biden's gone away. This is entrenched in significant.
Well, Biden was a puppet to it, yeah.
Truly, and so Andy Ngo, I mean, God bless that guy. He's an investigative reporter. He's really been reporting on this issue as we're talking about it right now. He's been pointing out this association between this ideology and violent behavior, the whole trans rights or else. You see these images. They're like paired with guns and bloodied imagery, and they're like next to Antifa symbols. I mean, this is not a conciliatory movement.
No.
This isn't how you gain sympathy.
No.
This isn't how you gain support. This is violent. This is what we call cultural Marxism. And that's what this is what's at the heart of this party right now. And you asked this question early in the show, and I had hoped that, and I think we've gone down the direction. I'm glad we did, because this is about sowing chaos. This is why it's decidedly anti-Christian. Christianity has brought stability. Yes, there's an obvious theological message that the order of the Judeo-Christian ethic flows out of the character of God. I got it. But if you forget the theology, which is really Thomas Jefferson's point when he was ministering to the Indians, if you will, if you just take the social elements, and I'm talking about the Kaskaskia Indians, if you just take the theology out of it and you look at what the Bible is pushing or teaching or advocating in the Ten Commandments and Jesus' Sermon on the Mount from Matthew 5:3 to Matthew 7:27, if you take those views, right, about adultery and murder and forgiveness and, not screwing around with your neighbor's wife and not stealing and not coveting, if you take those premises and you build them into society as ideals that we should aspire to, please tell me how that's not a good idea.
Yeah, so I can't help but think of the audience. So when George mentions the Kaskaskia Indians and Thomas Jefferson, there's a Jefferson Bible where he was trying to minister to the local Indians, natives around here. And he was saying, look, they're not going to relate to the theological aspect of the Bible, but there's a social order to the Bible. So let me remove any references to Christ and to theology, so to speak, and just look at this book. And so then people tried to bastardize that and use that as like, see, Thomas Jefferson didn't believe in Christianity. Well, it was very contextual. You have to understand the Kaskaskia Indians he was trying to deal with the people that don't understand Christianity as God as their creator. They understood that there's a God and that there's the spirits, and then they understand that there's an intelligent designer greater than themselves.
And to make the extrapolated point that ultimately there are people in the United States who have not been Christian. They've never been Christian. They have no intent in being Christian.
Right.
But man, they have espoused those same values.
Right.
Not knowing or caring that ultimately they're rooted in Judeo-Christian ethic. And that's the point. The point is that these things elevate human beings. They create societies where human beings flourish, right? And so I guess coming back to that, you've got a religion, an ideology here that is decidedly anti-Christian. Christianity makes you deal with reality. It makes sense of reality. That's the point. And this is an ideology that seeks to reject reality. And so you've got a political movement behind chaos, whatever sows discord in society, whatever keeps reversing America back from its commitment to Judeo-Christian ethic. And I'm telling you, it's brilliant in a sense. You're going after foundational stuff. Men think they're women. Women think they're men. Children have no idea what they are. Men have usurped their responsibility to be strong protectors of women, as we said earlier. Women have usurped, in many cases, either outsourced or completely neglected their role as nurturers. Children, for example, as I just mentioned, have no idea what their role is. We outsource them to the state in public schools where some clown pretending to be a teacher tells the little girl, I think you're a little boy. You really ought to think about that. You've got kids around him. You say, yeah, that's a great idea. It becomes a fad, like Bill Maher was getting to. Yeah. It's now commercialized. Yeah. It's institutionalized. And your effing tax dollars are subsidizing this madness.
See, and for me, Karen, I believe in freedom. I truly, it's not just, when it's convenient for me. I believe in freedom. So I believe adults have the freedom. And by the way, I get this from a biblical worldview. God believes in freedom because if he wants real relationship with you, he's got to give you the opportunity to stiff arm him. Because then it's not a relationship. You're a slave or you're a robot. That's not what he wants. He wants relationship. And so he gives, so I believe in absolute freedom in people that are, not freedom to interfere with my well-being or my health or something like that, but freedom to live your life within reason, the way you want to live your life. But when it comes to children, it's different. Again, it's Proverbs 22:6. Start a child up, raise a child up in the way they will go. When they get older, they want to depart from it. Our society has totally abandoned this norm, these rules of engagement on how we're going to raise children. You go back to kindergarten, Cop. I was counseling a potential client this week on a 5-year-old,
making a comment. Well, you know what I'm going to say. It goes back to kindergarten
I
cop
love
with me.
that.
I mean, think about it. They're in kindergarten, and then they go up to Arnold
I
Schwarzenegger.
wonder when that was coming, because that's a good one.
Boys have penises, girls have vaginas. I mean, that's just it. I mean, it's
we're done here. We're all
kindergarten
done.
cop. That's
Over.
just it. Boys have penises, girls have vaginas. That's God's design. That's the intelligent designer's way of doing it. Now, however you want to name that designer, I believe it's the God of the Bible. I think it objectively can be supported by evidence. But all I'm saying is that's it. These are norms. They weren't even questioned. I mean, you have Obama, Hillary Clinton, Biden not even questioning marriage into the mid-2000s. I mean, we're just talking 10, 15 years ago. They weren't even discussing. In 08, I think, that famous interview with Biden, he was like, what are we talking about here? Are we still talking about male and female? Is a marriage is between a man and a woman. Hillary Clinton is defending marriage on the Senate floor in New York. I mean, Obama, all of them did. So what changed? You really think that their ideology changed? Or was there such a hijacking of this movement, which I said when I left, this party was hijacked by another set of ideas that aren't part of the foundation of even the Democrat? Because there was just, no one disagreed on these things. Hey, man, check. Okay, let's argue about this stuff. That we're not even going to argue about that. A border, gender, marriage. That wasn't even in question, by the way. And even abortion was even, some things were off the table. Should be rare and safe. Rare meaning early on, and safe meaning making sure that it's done properly, whatever, and that there's no proper way to do it. It's evil, it's horrible. But I'm just saying. But now all those parameters are off. And I like to analyze when that happened. And so when George talks about this cultural Marxist movement getting into the Democrat, they had to look for a platform. And because there was this fight, the Democrat Party welcomed it in. And that's why I said this respectfully. I don't know how an older Democrat today that has been a Democrat all their life can logically defend why they're still a Democrat today if they were a Democrat back in when we were younger, a blue dog Democrat, yellow or blue dog.
Be so ignorant as to not see that it's not the same party.
I think it's I think it's Sergeant Schultz. In
I
Hogan's
get it.
Heroes. I see no evil. I hear no evil. But I'm a Democrat. I say that facetiously, but I mean truthfully, it has to be that, because you can't sit there. If you could debate yourself, and I challenged one person who's a dear brother, who's a lifelong Democrat. I said, debate your younger Democrat self, and then go and argue why you're a Democrat and what it means to be a Democrat. And I'll just pull out the popcorn and watch, because I really want to learn.
Right.
And he couldn't do that.
That's a great story, man.
He couldn't exercise. He couldn't do that exercise. He couldn't do it. He couldn't say, okay, Democrat today as a grown ass man, Democrat as a young man, child, whatever, growing up in that part. What did you stand for? And talk to me. What's the differences? What's the same? Here's the question. Tell me what's the same about you both parties when you were younger and older. And literally, he had a hard time. I don't even think he came up with one thing that's the same, except for we're for the immigrants. I mean, I guess, yes, the Democrat Party was for the immigrant and the person coming over and starting a new life. But the issue was the Democrat of the old wanted that person to come over, but the right way. I mean, Bill Clinton is arguing for that. He's arguing come over, but the right way. Obama was against birthright citizenship. So was Schumer. So was Reid. Look, watch. It's all on video. I mean, you don't have to read an article. I mean, sorry, George. But you can watch a video. Go ahead.
You know how
you can just watch a video.
Watch a video. Watch it at 1.5. I don't got time. I watch it right. Watch at 1.5, man. Don't mess
Stop it, y'all.
Yeah, and I just find great personal peace knowing that videos can never be played with or toyed with or edited in any way.
Unless they're AI.
I mean,
yeah, those are the real ones.
You know, I used to be that I didn't actually worry about that. Now with AI, I mean, I got to admit, I'm a little freaked out by it. But
I am too in my world. I mean, you can change videos, you can change text messaging. You can.
What do you think about when people ask AI about legal matters? I mean, people always talk about that. You don't get the practical side of it. You'll get the letter of the law. You won't get it explained. I mean, you'll get the letter of the law, but you won't get the application of it, and also the advocacy you definitely won't get. But, in the interpretation.
Coming back to your foundational point of, adults can do whatever they want to do, but these are kids.
That's my issue. Yeah,
they used to be off limits.
No, but that's something that I keep on thinking is when in Hollywood, let's say like Michael Jackson or Prince or Matthew Perry dies of an overdose, and then they find out that the doctor gave them like
so much of a drug, and then they charge the doctor, and they either, go to jail or get fined. I mean, isn't any of the responsibility on the doctor who's prescribing these medicines?
It depends. It depends of what you're dealing with. I mean, you're dealing with a patient that is so reliant on you and can't make intellectual, cognitive, and objective decisions on themselves. That's why this whole thing about attacking the parents for the shooting of the child, and why the mom, to me as a lawyer, I'm not going to divorce myself. I don't blame her for lawyering up and not talking to anybody. She doesn't have an I heard some people on Fox saying she has an obligation to talk to police. No, she doesn't. She doesn't have an obligation. She might argue morally.
I mentioned it earlier as a matter of fact, but I mean,
she doesn't have an obligation to talk to anybody. I mean, nobody. You don't either. Nobody does. Now, I mean, she got a lawyer, and he made a statement. He said, "Look, she's distraught."
But her son was 23, and
She's
that is
distraught.
an adult too.
Yeah, I mean, she goes, "Look, she hired a lawyer to handle questions like this."
Yeah.
And I thought that was a good statement, and I don't blame her. Look, with other parents that have been prosecuted, and maybe rightfully so, we can look at each case individually, but I wouldn't blame her. What benefit does she have to talk other than giving a statement? I'm distraught. I lost my son also. I'm devastated for the family members. We're all pain. I mean, what am I going to say that's going to help anybody? I mean, people just really want a punching bag. And so I don't blame her. Now, I understand the dad made some comments, and he's been speaking. I'm assuming they're divorced. Maybe they're not. But I understand the mom lives in Florida, right?
But I understand the criticism. I mean, at a base level, I understand the criticism.
Of who?
What
The
sort
mom?
of parent? What sort of parent goes with their kid to change their name as a reflection of wanting them to change their sexual identity? I mean, what sort of parent is that confused, that co-deluded with their kid that would do that? I mean, there's legitimate criticism.
I agree, but that's
why I'm keeping it there.
But I separate that between her talking to the cops today and that. Yeah, they're separate issues.
There's the legal aspect of it. She has every right.
And then was there a foreseeability that in 2017, so that's 8 years ago, and he's 23, so he was 15. Wow. So at 15, roughly, I'm just doing some quick math. So at 15, she went with him to change his name legally. Wow. Now we can have a completely separate discussion on how that was terrible parenting. But did she have foreseeability that 8 years later he was going to do a mass murder?
Well, sure. But I mean, see, that's the other thing. I mean, there's you can do both. You can say it seems to me that seems to me reprehensible to do. But at the same time, in this culture, you it's understandable. If you're not a believer, if you're not a Christian, if you don't understand biblical teaching on this, if you have I think very little common sense, and I mean I read what parents say on social media about their kids, and in many cases I see very little difference between parents are saying and what teens are saying. I mean the level of immaturity. You've got parents that are stuck in adolescence. You really do. It's incredible the level of immaturity, tripping over themselves to be best friends with their kids. I mean, outsource their kids to their screens.
Or to be cool.
This is an epidemic.
Sharing clothes. That to me, when I see that, I'm
sharing
like,
clothes?
yeah,
believe it or not,
with their teenage kids.
This is a curious defense of the mother. In other words, she's part of a culture. And so a lot of people are doing it. And I hate to say it, but a majority of people have outsourced their kids to social media. They really are. Yeah. It's been a battle in my home. I got great kids. We're blessed with 4 amazing kids. But they're human beings.
Yep.
And it's been a battle. It's been a battle to try to, I mean, they're
kids.
My youngest is 17 now. So if I've lost the battle, I've lost the battle. The battle's lost, but I haven't lost the battle, praise the Lord. But it's been a battle because, everybody's doing it. It's the way people communicate. It's the way people exchange information. There are groups within groups on social media. It's how people belong because that's everything. That's a natural human condition, Nico, that we always talk about.
Especially after COVID. I think that
to belong.
especially young people need a reason or some group to belong to because they lost that.
And parents have to be involved. That's
I've taken criticism over the years for being just very raw, obviously. And we made a decision. I would say when Maya turned, I think 14, I started doing it, just being real raw with her. And just, but also I have very strict expectations, but making her understand why we think the way we do and answering her questions and probing and being involved and making sure that you don't just, go along to get along and you want to be liked by, I don't give a shit if I'm liked by my kid. I want to be loved by my child. She's not going to always like me. My children don't always going to like me, but I want to be loved by them. And I want them later on to understand me. And when I get a letter from Maya saying, I understand why you do the things you do and why you are. I mean, she doesn't know it, but I mean, I just say, man, thank you, Lord, for that affirmation. Not that I need her affirmation, but for her to see it younger than later. Because I do share things with her and all the shit that I see in the justice system. And she goes, Papi, I wish you hadn't seen so much stuff, because then I can't unsee it. I can't undo it. I just don't want you to do what I did in my life. I don't want you to see what I did. Mm-hmm. I don't want you to learn the way I learned. Now, how do you get there? I don't know. So I want you to struggle. You have to have discipline. Papi, can I do this? No, you got to do this first. You're going to train. I don't want to train. You got to fight. All my kids have to know violence. They have to know violence. And they do. They wrestle, they do jiu-jitsu, they box. I'm going to leave here and we're going to go box right now with a good buddy of mine who's a great coach, and I coach with him. And they just have to know violence. They have to know discipline. They have to know suffering. I don't want them to know suffering the way I know suffering, but I'm going to leave that to the Lord. And that's why I pray. One of the many reasons why I pray. I say, Lord, I bless my children every day with Numbers 6:24. They have it memorized because every day they don't leave the house without the blessing. And I pray for protection over them. But I say, but the Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord, as Job said. So I can't guarantee that my kids are. All I can do is pray and do my part and prepare them and teach them things and make sure that they understand and make sure they can critically think and make sure that they're dangerous to their faith and with their thoughts and with their hands, God forbid, if they need to. That's all you can do. And then you trust the Lord to walk out into a very dangerous world to navigate this. And then you pray for their protection. And look, and I pray. Let me tell you what I pray. I pray for my children to suffer just enough for the Lord to get their attention. I don't want, and maybe like someone prayed like that for me, and maybe me suffering just enough was my brother's murder. Maybe me suffering just enough was being arrested for selling drugs. Maybe being suffered. I don't know. Obviously, my son being on the spectrum is a wonderful responsibility, but it's a challenge. Obviously, we love Michael. His birthday is going to be Monday. Going to turn 15.
Wow. And
having a 15-year-old on the spectrum of autism is challenging because you have puberty and you have this, and he doesn't communicate. He says words, not phrases, and he's nonverbal at this point. And that's probably not going to change. And so I have to prepare my children to live in a very world, to navigate a broken fucking world, but also to be able to be an advocate for Michael because he's a soft target. That's tough business, man. Mm-hmm. And when you're a child, how do you deal with that? And so I have to prepare them for that. I have to prepare my children, our children, Davi and I, for a world to not have their papi and mommy in it. Because someday the Lord's going to take me home. I pray it's not till my 90s, but it could be 90 seconds for all I know. I do what I can, and that's it. I can do it. I trust God, and I do what I need to do. But I have to prepare them to live without. So they have to be able to think. They have to have their own relationship with Christ. They have to have their own, be able to think their way out of problems. And it's got to be genuine. It can't be putting on a show for mommy and papi. I can't stand fake people. I can't. Whatever you are, just be what you are, and then I know what I can contend with, and I can make decisions, and you can make decisions. Just be. I cannot stand disingenuous people, and I'm surrounded by them in politics and in the justice system. Bunch of fake fucking people, man, and they all have a set of ideas, and they had this reputation, but their character sucks. And like we tell the men in Bible study, your reputation is what other people think of you. Your character is who you are. By God's grace and with a lot of hard work and looking at yourself honestly, may our reputation truly reflect what our character is. But I live in a world like this, where the reputation is over here and the character is over here, and I don't want that. I don't want to live in a world like that. I've lived in that world. I've been that person years and years ago, and I don't want that for my children. But I want them to know who they are in Christ, and to be real about it and to be raw. I don't want them to say, "Well, I'm a Christian because my mom and papi are Christians." Or I was raised that way, and then they get outside of this environment, all of a sudden their ideas are tested, and then and the whole thing collapses, right? And we've seen it. So all I can do is do my best, and Davi can do our best to prepare them for that, for them to be fully persuaded, but then also to contend with a world that doesn't accept our worldview.
I think this is very valuable, everything you just said. But I love what you just said there. It kind of hit me right where it counts, because I mean, I've been plenty times wrong. My wife and I have been plenty times wrong, raising our kids. We've always tried to, when we recognize that we're wrong, rush to model repentance and say, look, we're genuinely sorry for what we said or what we did, et cetera, et cetera. And we try to nurture an environment where repentance is a lifestyle, because I always tell Nico that's important. I think that's biblical. It's central to being to living a Christian life. But you gotta, at some point you gotta say, have I been real? Will my kids say, look, my parents have their flaws, but my parents are legit. That's who they are. My dad's my dad. My mom's my mom, and that's a big deal. You know, 'cause you're not a fake piece of shit. I mean,
No.
you know,
And we know the
matters.
pecking order in my house. I mean, I jokingly all the time, I'm the second favorite papi in the house. My 12-year-old, when she was like 6 or so, started that, and I take that position well. I'm the second favorite papi. Christ is first.
Love it.
I remember saying, "Papi, happy Father's Day, happy Daddy's." Oh, thank you, Angel. And she goes, "You're my second favorite papi." And I was like, "Huh." And I thought she was going to say Jiddo. That means Arabic and grandfather, or maybe Abuelito, my wife's pop. But which would have still pissed me off, would have broken my heart. But whatever, I would have taken it. And I was like, "Oh, who's your first favorite?" I hope she wasn't going to say it's some teacher. And then and she goes, "Jesus." And then I said,
"Oops."
and I was like, "Of course." And so like, all the cards, my favorites, and then Zeiter's taking it, my second favorite
That is
papi, and I
amazing.
gladly accept that in our home. I gladly accept that.
That is so cool.
Anything else? Any comments we can respond to before we sign off and have people enjoy the long weekend?
He's much nicer. I say, in our home, our home is not a democracy; it's a dictatorship
Oh,
until
buddy,
they're old enough to make their own decisions.
Well, you know the way I run the home, Daddy. Come on, it's not a constitutional
And I've never
republic.
apologized for that.
No, man.
Ever.
But and you also have to look. Your yes is a yes, your no is a no, and again, you can't worry about being liked by your kids. I've told my children no all the time. Last night after the football game, everybody went to Whataburger. My egg brought her ass home.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
it. Well, not good for her. She had no choice. I mean, that's just the way it is. Just a tough shit. I mean, that's just the way
Come
it is.
home
And I
or
said,
don't
I love
come
you, Angel.
home,
And
ever.
you know, and if you push it, then you're not going to go to football games.
Yep.
I mean, so there's consequences. I mean, and she goes, and she didn't resist. She didn't, okay, puppy. And she comes home, and she can have her friends come over, whatever. They can
Yeah,
sleep over.
that's exactly what I would do.
There's parameters. And then yesterday, before the football game, puppy, I want to go to so-and-so's house so we can get ready and go together. I was like, well, you got training.
Oh,
She
man.
got to train with Coach JJ because you got a competition coming up, and you're going to do it. You got your private. Well, but when can he do it? I go, he can do it when he can do it. That's what's going to happen because we're going off his schedule because he's one fitting us in. So we're going to. Okay, puppy. And then she rushed. She came by the office. She surprised me yesterday. So I'm at the office, and then I went to take a leak. I went to the restroom, and I come back, and Ashley goes, "Hey, Maya's in your office." I go, "My daughter?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh shit!" I ran in my office, and she's sitting there, and she visited with me for 20 minutes. She watched some videos, and she's going to work in the office eventually. So and just analyzing some prepping for a trial, and she asked some 40 minutes. She goes, "Okay, I just came here because I have to go train, and it's right down the street, Ohana." And so,
Beautiful.
so there's this lifestyle. Like right now, we're going to go box. You don't think she wants to get up on a Saturday and box?
Yeah.
That's just what we do, man. And then when she's 18 and out of the house, I pray that I've raised her in a way and then that she keeps some of these habits. But the habit that I pray that she never gets away with is the habit of trusting in Christ. The habit of knowing that God knows best. The habit is when you follow his prescription, no matter, I don't give a shit what the world says. And that's why the fighting and the toughness and the being comfortable in your skin to resist the pressures. That God knows best, that Christ has your best interest in mind. And ultimately, when you're called off this earth, you're going to be with him and all of your loved ones and your family that said yes to Jesus for eternity. I want her to be fully persuaded by that above all else. And in that process, she knows that I am an advocate. I'm a conduit for heaven in our home. And that's it. And that's just the way it goes. And I can be her friend because we're getting older and we enjoy each other's company. And she understands my politics and my humor. And we laugh, and she knows I'm a dumbass, and she knows that I like to crack up, but she also knows that when I say something, I mean business. And she sees the look, and she knows the difference, and she knows where the line is.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's an experiment, right? Parenting.
Amen.
And I look up every day for my instruction. I don't have it figured out.
And if your nephew Jaden's watching, he's screwed because he did go to Whataburger last night, and he
sorry.
had to because he's in the football team.
Sorry, well.
So that's the thing
Thank
to do.
God for
I didn't know that.
location
So now
on my phone.
I'm not saying that there's nothing
That's
wrong with
what I
going to
always say.
Whataburger, but I deal with too many cases from
Yeah.
Whataburger.
No,
I'm not a midnight Whataburger
I think
fan.
that's part of their ritual.
It
the
is.
football
No,
team.
it is.
I heard your son is growing a mustache. Is that true?
He's not allowed to live at home if that happens.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
What's wrong with the mustache?
I just told him to leave the 70s behind. The 80s are okay.
Oh man, some guys look good in them. You got to see my picture with them. Whenever I grow my beard out,
We've got to post that. Come
No,
on.
I'll show it to you guys. You're gonna
Okay.
freak out. I look like American Me. No. Every year, like coming up in October, no shave. Well, and then I keep it till January usually, unless there's a trial, which I don't know what I'm gonna do this year because we're gonna be in trial.
But a beard.
A beard. No,
beard.
but when I shave my beard in January, I keep the mustache just for a picture. I'll show it to you.
Really?
Okay,
I look
I
like
wanna see it
American.
too.
I'll find it.
Okay,
All right,
Harold.
guys.
It is.
No, you'll see.
Okay,
All right,
Geraldo.
guys. No, don't screw it up for me, dickhead. What a dick. All right. So, you guys have a blessed weekend. Enjoy your families.
I just knew that.
All right. God bless you. Join us next week. Bye-bye.